Alex, we just mentioned the Solana news, but, this is kind of a larger issue that's happening in crypto where there's just sort of like a decline in trust all across the board, both for centralized storage, hot wallets. I mean, things that people have known about for a long time, but we're now seeing, for example, Celsius halting deposits is another example of this, right? But at the same time, as we see in like social media, people complain about this stuff, but the question is, do they actually leave? Do they actually quit Facebook after complaining about it for years and years? And so my question for you is, given all this sort of decline in trust, both with like centralized storage, hot wallets, is Ledger actually seeing sort of the benefits of that? Are you actually seeing people, leaving centralized exchanges, leaving sort of these kind of less secure storage options and moving to what should be safer options like Ledger?
Hi, Emily, and thanks so much for having me on. To answer your question, I think absolutely, right? So we're seeing a tremendous amount of traction and the renewed focus on security, which is very much rational behavior from the marketplace given the current conditions. We're seeing an increased number of hacks, and I think this is really a symptom of an underlying issue, or more so even the underlying success of crypto over the last 5 years or so. The ecosystem overall has seen a tremendous amount of growth, right? And we talk about it really around 3 different kind of trajectories of scalability factors and scalability risk. We've seen a tremendous increase in scale of value, right? And that obviously will continue to attract malicious actors into the ecosystem. We also see a tremendous growth in scale of complexity. We have now multiple networks, a very vibrant DeFi ecosystem, a variety of different use cases with NFTs and different value propositions. New networks are emerging on an ongoing basis. And that really does introduce a tremendous amount of complexity into the ecosystem, and that needs to be properly managed and secured. And then the third dimension of scalability is around operations, right? So crypto has always had a global audience, but now that audience is larger and more global than ever. And these third-party organizations really have to have operational processes in place to have follow-the-sun operations to support a global audience and to be able to mitigate these risks that basically never go away, right? The bank window doesn't close at 5 p.m. as it does in the traditional financial sector. Now, all of these things combined, all of these scalability issues that we've seen and the rapid growth that all of the crypto ecosystem players have been trying to accommodate is really starting to come to a set of challenges that are very difficult to manage. And that's where Ledger really excels. The way we look at this problem set is really security at the edges. The challenge is, as you kind of build additional complexity into the ecosystem, you have more and more intermediaries and more different players. And this is exactly what we're seeing with Solana. As Charles properly mentioned before me, Solana as a blockchain wasn't hacked. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with Solana as a blockchain itself. It's the intermediaries, it's the wallet providers. In fact, it was the communication between a wallet provider and an NFT marketplace that compromised a wide range of these, of these secret keys that are now being used to compromise wallets. So it's these types of complexities where we see a lot of these attack vectors. And this is why, Ledger is really the only solution out there that allows you to protect the endpoint itself, which is the end user, from these types of schemes. And that's really how we solve for security at scale.
So what do users actually fear more? Is it getting hacked, or the idea that their coins will then be lent out and potentially they lose everything in a terrible poor risk management situation from their exchanges and what have you? It seems like the biggest collapses have been in that field more so than some of these hacks.
I think that's a fair point. And the good news for Ledger is we solve for both of those pain points, right? So we focus on security, and that is our primary value proposition. It's our ethos. It's literally in our DNA. It's where the company started and originated in the secure wallets. But once you get that security aspect right and you build trust within the retail ecosystem, which we have done, selling over 5 million hardware wallets to date, and securing over 15% of crypto globally. Once you have that level of coverage, then what we really promote is self-sovereignty and self-custody as a concept. So we're empowering individuals to manage their own assets, and we are in a position to do so because we offer the most secure solution to be able to do that. And ease of use plays a very large role there as well. So maybe to reframe the situation, there isn't really an exodus from exchanges. There isn't really an exodus from these third-party providers. It's more of a collaboration, and we're actually partnering with a lot of the exchanges out there to advertise and bring additional education to the retail audience that a hardware wallet really is the way to go, and self-custody is the right model. And exchanges are very favorable to that because it's not their core business to manage their customers' assets. What they want to do is provide you the right mechanisms to transact and buy and get crypto adoption. So we all have the same objectives and really good alignment on incentives, and we're working together very closely to make sure that the retail audience is as secure as possible.
It's funny you mentioned that because I did notice that Bitcoin leaving exchanges was continuing throughout the month of July, with the balance of Bitcoin held on exchanges nearing 2.4 million Bitcoins, which is about a 10% decline from the beginning of the year. That being said, I'm wondering, what is your current outlook for the markets, considering these bankruptcies we've seen with crypto lenders and exchanges facing exploits and this kind of flight of crypto out of the exchanges? What is your macro outlook on the crypto industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I spent most of my career in capital markets, being at Nasdaq for 12 years before joining Ledger. And I find this to be actually quite a different ecosystem. And this contraction that we're currently seeing is actually a very positive thing for crypto in general and for the evolution of this space. My current thought process and the way we look at it at Ledger is we're actually pivoting a bit as an industry from strictly focusing on kind of financial services, returns, to some certain degree arbitrage and financial engineering in the space, to actual long-term value creation. And I think, in the current state, this is a necessary contraction, which creates the right conditions for renewed long-term growth with real value creation. And this is why we're seeing continued traction in the NFT space, with actual assets being created and communities being developed that are digesting this value. And I think this will continue to grow. And this is where, new networks and new developments with Ethereum and the variety of different models that you can now implement with smart contracts, and also Bitcoin starting to gravitate in some cases towards that. There's a couple different use cases, new developments in that area. So my current hypothesis is that these networks are going to start to be leveraged for creating a wide range of different valuable use cases that will continue to grow the value footprint of the crypto ecosystem overall. And there'll be a little bit of a movement from the current kind of arbitrage and financial engineering models that we've been seeing with the increased growth of DeFi to more longer-term value creation mechanisms.
So there are reports that Ledger is in talks to raise an additional $100 million. I know that this is not finalized by in any way, but in this hypothetical raise of $100 million, what would this hypothetical $100 million be used for?
It's a good question. I'm not in a position to comment on the fundraise itself, the hypothetical fundraise, but as far as the theoretical fundraise. So no comment on that point. But to be more direct, I think where we're investing today and will continue to invest, and we're actually under these current market conditions, Ledger is growing rapidly and is extremely well positioned for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. Security is now top of mind. And I think the community is coming around to the fact that security is really the precursor to mass adoption and scalability. So the areas where we're investing fundamentally is really starting to focus on how we solve for that scale of complexity pain points to make sure that Ledger security is available to as wide of an audience under as many different use cases and conditions as possible in the crypto ecosystem to continue to grow adoption overall. So for us, it's really kind of the tide lifts all boats type of a model.
So Ledger is obviously a very global company. I was wondering if you could give us some insight into just like the geographical breakdown, like where are some of the regions where you're seeing the most growth? Is there anything surprising there? And why? Why do you see more growth in some regions versus others?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Ledger, obviously, we're a French company. We take that very close. It's a very strong French heritage, makes us pretty unique. We're seeing a tremendous amount of increased adoption in both US and Asia and APAC. So we're seeing a significant amount of growth in those geographic locations. And I think there as well, it's primarily focused on aspects of value creation and different use cases. So as mainstream players are starting to enter into the space around NFTs, around tokenization use cases, we will see more increased adoption with major brand names that already have that household feel to them, starting to leverage the crypto ecosystem to develop their own use cases. And then that should drive standard retail adoption. And it should be able to increase those aspects. And for us, that's a huge area of focus because these are the audiences that require protection most. We kind of joke where we're going from, the early adoption, right, of the highly savvy, technical, crypto native group of people to mass adoption of the retail audience. So, theoretically, it's going to be, we want to be in a position where my mom could be leveraging some of these crypto use cases to do, a variety of different things with her favorite brands, right? And that completely changes the dynamic.
And I guess the final question is, are those use cases, is that mass adoption, are you guys really bullish on NFTs? Because I understand you're releasing this Ledger market that is focused on NFTs.
Very much so. Very, very bullish on NFTs. Very bullish on making sure that the right security and governance layers are implemented for NFTs and the NFT ecosystem, which has really been lacking. And again, I think it's more of a symptom of how quickly this space has been growing, right? Because there's really no precedent to this level of adoption historically with other, with other ecosystems and with other new markets. So for us, it was imperative to create the right model to showcase to the space that this can be done securely, this can be done in a controlled way. And it was very important for us to get in front of the major brands and the major participants to really synthesize the fact that when you do NFTs, when you launch and drop your own NFTs, there's that very clear association directly to your brand, right? You're creating value and distributing that value to your communities, to the people that buy your products, to the people that know and associate themselves with your brand. And if you do that incorrectly, if you compromise on security or you compromise on governance, you're putting that audience, you're putting that community, and you're putting your brand at risk fundamentally. And that is a very important thing for them to realize, right? This isn't just a crypto project, that gets impacted. This is a well-known, established brand that took years and years to build, and now you're putting that at risk.